Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bright Spot webinar on 7 pitfalls to watch for in a channel incentive program. I love this graphic. We've got this asexual business person running and trying to avoid falling into the pitfalls that come with channel incentive programs. So let me proceed and introduce our speakers. I am Mike May. I'm president of Bright Spot. I'm also the 2019 chairman of the Incentive Research Foundation. And I have with me Kelly Coons, who's one of our account executives and is also a very talented volunteer with the Site Texas chapter and is the president of the Site Texas chapter this year.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for your volunteer service. So one of the things that we want to do is try to make this interactive as we go through. So on your sidebar, you should see a chat window. We would encourage you to submit questions or comments. And at the end, we're going to do an audience drawing, or our marketing manager might just award a person if he really, really likes their question or their comment. So we would love to see questions or comments today. So with that, we are going to jump right in to the 7 pitfalls so that we make the most use of your time. And let's see, where did number 1 go?
Let's see, maybe as Mike's advancing the slide, one thing that we might start with is, as a third party, we have a really unique vantage point getting to see channel programs across various industries, and we also get to see some of the mistakes or pitfalls that they make along the way.
Yeah, good. Thank you for covering. Well, I found the advanced button. So the number 1 pitfall we're going to start with is you have low mind share with channel programs, and that's due to something we call low quota share. So intuitively, we all understand that channels are not our direct employees. There's a view that says direct employees, we can have our thumb upon them and require them to do things. But with channels, all we have is a carrot. So we created a term here at Bright Spot that we call quota share. And here's an example. So we took maybe a technology channel rep that might sell a variety of software and hardware products, and then we looked at how their sales over a whole year is divided. Their quota may not be hard-coded by these, but this may represent what they sell during the course of a year. And what we would all recognize, but while we recognize it, we often forget, is the higher the percentage is, the more mind share we have. The lower the percentage, then the lower the mind share. So if I'm down in that other bucket that might have 10 other products in it, and I'm just 1 or 2 or 3 percentage point, I'm not going to have much mind share. I heard a statistic the other day that the average channel rep might participate in 10 to 15 channel incentive programs. So, if they're in that many, it's harder to get attention than we might think. And, our tip here that we'll include some tips throughout is if you're below 20%, you probably have small mind share, you have small heart share. Therefore, we need to increase rewards and promotion. And Kelly, what I would say is everybody nods to this concept, but it feels like it's very frequently forgotten, which is why it's our number 1 pitfall.
Yes, and there's one question I would pose to you as far as what would you say is our client's perception of their own quota share?
Yes, well, first of all, you're ineligible for the gift card, even though that was a great question. But I would say their perception is that their mind share is much higher. I think the mistake that often happens is the channel marketing manager and the channel sales manager, they spend a lot of time working on these incentive programs. They create budget models, they do PowerPoints internally, they go get finance approval. So they get very, very familiar with the program, and they make the mistake in thinking that everybody else is as familiar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's see. Point number 2.
Point number 2, avoid run rate risk. I think I'm actually going to ask you to speak to the next slide since this was your PG-13 ad.
Okay, yeah. So, apologies up front. Turn down your sensitivity dial. So there is a speaker that I heard once that speaks on sales and customer service named Jeffrey Gitomer. Gitomer is out of New York City, which tells you a little bit. So he's got that Northeast vibe. But he put out this tweet that I saw, which was, do you want your spouse to be satisfied or your spouse to be loyal? And so I thought we would use that to make the point, do you want your channel partner to be satisfied and or loyal? And really the point we're trying to make here is I think people make the mistake, the pitfall, and assume that their partners are more loyal and that their run rate business is safe.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think you're using a good word there. It's a nice segue for me as far as the difference between loyalty and incentive. It seems like for the last few years, I'm taking calls, and a lot of our prospects and customers are using the term loyalty as almost a buzzword, when really they're looking for an incentive program. And it's important to know the difference between the two. For instance, loyalty is a program that happens when you have very high frequent transactions, but a low dollar amount per sale. So there's a customer that we work with in the industrial supply segment, and they're selling smaller sale prices, but they're happening more often, and that loyalty begins to add up. On the other hand, incentive programs are when sales occur less frequently but are higher dollar. For instance, we see this a lot with our software and technology clients.
Yeah, and I think it's many times a program will have characteristics of both. We have a tech client. Most of their offers are probably an incentive offer because somebody could make $500 or $1,000, in part of this program is gift cards, so they could earn a very large dollar gift card. But they have some other offers that accumulate very small amounts based on frequent transaction, where each transaction might only be $5, $10, or $15. For most people, $5, $10, or $15 of value is not going to motivate them, but over a long period of time, it will hopefully keep them loyal. And I think, Kelly, when we were prepping for this, you talked about in the consumer space all the different loyalty programs that we participate in.
Yeah, I was just talking with Mike about the many that I use on a daily basis without even realizing it. But yesterday I went to Starbucks, booked a flight on American, a hotel with Hilton, then on my way home went to Tom Thumb and scanned my Tom Thumb card. So quite a few.
Yeah, but what happens is maybe none of those motivated you that day to go make a purchase, but over a long period of time, you feel good if you get an airline frequent flyer trip or extra hotel stay. Mm-hmm. So I think it's good for us to think through that because that can affect awards, or it can also affect what kind of value is ascribed. Probably the most common mistake is we see channel partners that want to do something that is an incentive to motivate behavior, but the reward is too low to actually influence behavior.
I think there's one thing I would say about this one, just to take it back to the channel space. I was on a discovery call just a few weeks ago with prospects who had brand new global program, but he said, I don't want to just award run rate business. That's business in the books. That's just recurring revenue for us. Why would I incentivize that? Our advice to anyone that's starting a channel program or is running a channel program is to just think about run rate as not a bad thing, especially when launching a new program. It's okay to incentivize up to 30% of run rate just to increase that engagement. So the big takeaway here is don't be afraid of run rate and don't take it for granted.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because we were talking to somebody that wanted to grow their channel sales 20%. Well, if they don't hold on to the 100% they already have now, it's going to be much harder to get to 20. So punchline, we think there's a place for run rate rewards within a channel program. Let's see. Pitfall number 3 is avoid overspending. This is a stat that I saw a few years ago that I thought was amazing. It was done by Accenture, a study they did. So it was very credible very credible consulting group that came up with it. And in their study, their calculation, they said 5 to 10% of incentive budgets are often overspent. And when you dive into the reasons in that circle, they said there were a couple of major reasons. One is complexity, that in the course of making the rules so complex that they just accidentally overspend on the reward. The other one that somewhat relates to complexity is decentralization. And they said that many times there will be 3 or 4 offers or 3 or 4 different programs that might reward the same sale, and some of those stack upon one upon another, and so you may get overlapping incentives that relate to that. And then the last one is data errors. They said many incentives are operated manually, and that leads to data errors in terms of fraudulent claims, duplicate claims, rewarding a product that might not have been within the eligible sales dates. So, maybe a bit of a self-serving tip here is a strong incentive platform like what we call our Ignite incentive platform can pay for itself by squeezing out or eliminating that 5 to 10% overspend.
Absolutely. And I think I'd just add maybe one more shameless plug about our incentive platform. What it's great at doing is it promotes, communicates, reports, and tracks all in one, which makes it very easily auditable by you and your team.
Yeah, and those good platforms will, they will not allow a claim to be submitted if it's outside of the eligible dates. It won't allow if the SKU is not that, or if that PO or sales order has already been claimed, it won't let somebody claim it another time.
Let's see. So moving on to number 4, expect a slow ramp up. And I think the key word here really is expect. Is that one thing that I need to talk with clients about from time to time is expectation versus reality. When it comes to, the adoption of a new program, it can take anywhere from 12 to 24 months to be truly adopted and to actually penetrate the channel space, which we know is incredibly fragmented. So the real takeaway is lower your expectation and know that you cannot over communicate.
Yeah, and I think this drawing, the 0 to 3 months might even be exaggerated compared to reality. What often happens when a new channel program is launched is there is a group of reps that probably have high quota share, high mind share, they're loyal to the brand, and those ramp up very quickly. But it really takes a long time to get from 3 to 24 months. And as you said, when we work on new programs, people always expect it to ramp more quickly than it really does. And actually, one of the things we even wanted, we said, if probably what this would really look like is maybe more like the graphic we're showing now, which is flatten out the ramp up that we did show. Above that, you say max participation is pretty far above what it even ramps to. And I feel like most people expect 75% participation, but many times you may only engage 25, 50, 60% of the target audience because channels are inherently disconnected. They turn over more frequently. You might not have a direct one-to-one communication link outside of a channel incentive. But one concept that this is sort of a bonus concept here because it's not really a pitfall, but it's just a good term to know, is take rate. And what you see is that the take rate is far below 100% participation or 100% of all sales. And I remember a client that told me once, hey, Mike, we have about a 25% take rate. Therefore, I know 75% of my sales will not be submitted. So I can offer a much richer incentive knowing that it won't all be claimed. So they said, I could make my incentive 4 times as large as I can afford because I know only 25% will be taken.
Yeah, so maybe the pitfall there is failing to take into account run rate business without realizing what a small take rate you might actually have.
Yeah. And I'd say as far as tip, we don't have a tip here, but just cautioning management expectations above you so that they don't expect to hit that 75% participation within the first year. Let's see, communications. So based on the many programs we would do here, I would say this pitfall is probably the number one mistake that we see most often, which is the communications are weak, they're minimal, and they're underfunded. And when I say underfunded, Kelly, what's the first place people cut when they need to squeeze the budget?
Communications, 100% of the time. It's incredibly undervalued.
Yeah, and everybody thinks, we'll just send a couple of emails but the average person now gets 200 emails a day. We all know that people delete rapidly, so it's hard to get attention
myself
and break through with email.
See, so when it comes to what we can do differently, a lot of these might seem obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people within channel programs don't take advantage of coming up with a creative campaign and a catchy theme and investing in great graphic design to be more eye-grabbing. You know, we like to work with our clients to put together a marketing calendar or engagement campaign. And of course, you know, one thing that really sets BrightSpot apart is our passion for communications. We believe in well-crafted messaging, we invest in graphic design, and we believe that program communications enhance the entire experience of the program. And then before we move on, this 1-3-1 is our quick maybe tip or takeaway, but 1, start with a core message, have 3 supporting bullets, and then always end with a call to action. I think we do have a tip, actually.
Yeah, well, I like that one. And I think, you know, the tip is what we said at the beginning, which is the channel does not know what you know. And everybody nods, but boy, it's just the most common mistake that we see. And we already did say no email. Let's see. So we got 2 more points. While we're here, I want to remind you, please send in any questions or comments in the chat window. Your odds are very good of earning the incentive today of a $50 Amazon e-gift card. So number 6 is here we say get a balanced diet, because we say most incentive programs are unhealthy. I remember back when we were in grade school, they had that triangle of the different food groups that we were supposed to eat for a balanced diet. I think sometimes we accidentally drift to a place where our incentive programs have an unhealthy budget. So this is what a healthy budget looks like, or a balanced budget. Certainly 70 to 85% of the budget should go to rewards. We want to see that the incentive or the loyalty rewards are working their way into the participants' hands. But those other 3 slices of the pie for admin, communications, and tech, those are critically important. If any of those get out of balance, it creates health problems for the incentive. We already talked about communications, that if communications are shrunk too low, you may have the best kept secret in the incentive world. And there's some budgets that we work on where we'll see that communications get squeezed down to maybe 1%. Mm-hmm. And that ramp up is even slower than we talked about earlier.
Yeah, it's not 1%. Sometimes a client will say, I can take care of all of that internally. We have partner emails, we have, you know, partner communications that go out. But the truth is, relying on those existing channels, it ends up being a lot of white noise that is probably already tuned out, so that the chance of your program making an impact becomes even less.
Yeah, I know we were talking to somebody, we're at an RFP right now, and they said, no, we want you to do that because we compete for internal resources, or it gets backburnered, it gets delayed. We want you to do it because we want you to create that marketing calendar, and then we want to hold you accountable with no excuses. We want it to know that it's going to go like clockwork. Then, technology is where website would exist, database would exist. That's so important to achieve that 10% savings from overspend that we talked about. But also that can be what makes both communications and administration effective or efficient. The other thing I would say is we have one client that manages a lot of the front end of their incentives internally. But the professionalism of the appearance of what they do isn't that strong. I think a really nice website creates a positive visual impression to the channel that says this incentive is important, it's well done, it's supported, where maybe something in Google Docs or a shared form might not do that.
Yeah, it looks good to the partners to show that you're investing in them. You're right.
And then admin, that's certainly where BrightSpot comes in. And there's always a little bit of admin in the way of participant support, email support, tax reporting, reporting to management, as well as maintaining website and things like that. Oh, in the bottom left, on our website, we have an incentive budget builder where you can enter different variables about compensation, payout rates, take rates, reward amounts, and see what we suggest a balanced budget would look like. So it's a pretty cool interactive tool. And let's see.
Last but not
Number
least,
7.
pitfall number 7, know when to ditch the sheet. And so we'll see a lot of incentive programs, or a lot of our clients start with just managing on their own via Excel spreadsheets. But we want to help you understand, when does it make sense to move to a platform or to work with a third party. And a lot of times that tips when you have more than 50 people participating, or a total award spend of greater than 25,000. That's when automating and moving to a platform can make things run a lot smoother and your life a lot easier. We have some clients that still manage on Excel spreadsheet, but they spend so much time tracking and auditing and validating on their own that it becomes a part-time, if not a full-time job, depending on the scale.
Yeah. And, some of this makes sense because a basic website could be, could be as low as 5,000, but it could very easily be 10,000 or more. So, let's say it is a $10,000 website, but the award budget's only 25. That's one of those cases where the pie pieces that we just showed, I'd back up just to that. All of a sudden here, if that technology slice was 10,000 in the pink and 25 in the rewards, you could see that the pink slice would be getting pretty large.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we don't see enough of the value going to the participant in the form of rewards. So certainly Excel and email can be a place to start. I would say, if you're relying on Excel and email and doing it internally, those are the places that it creates the risk of that overspend, as well as it can make it difficult to handle tax compliance.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the nice things about a website and a database is it greatly assists with the tax compliance. So we're going to hit the point now for Q&A. While we're waiting to do that, I want to remind you somebody's going to get a $50 gift card if they submit a good question, and there's not a lot of competition yet. And you will enter through the chat window. So let's see. Let's go to our chat window. Let's see what we have here. Okay, let's see. We have a question here, Kelly. With a lot of focus on NPS, which I believe is Net Promoter Scores, today, do you have any thoughts or data points on how great or poor incentive program could impact Net Promoter Score? That's really interesting. I don't know that I've seen any data, Kelly, but I would certainly believe that it would have a positive influence.
I think there might be data from the IRF. We were just discussing the other day,
yes,
as far as reach versus exclusivity. So maybe we could dive a little bit deeper into that, because yes, having an incentive program is a great thing, but how many people should it reach and touch could easily influence NPS.
Yeah, so this concept out of the IRF Top Performer Study, it's my current favorite study. I think I've got a blog coming in the next month on that, so stay tuned for that. But it talks about many incentive programs reward exclusivity, which is the top rep or the top 10%. Maybe they win a big prize, or the top 10% win a trip, the President's Club trip. But top performing companies use incentives that have a wider reach and sort of touch a wide swath of the middle 60%. And wider reach leads to getting into that top performer segment. I think that helps with engagement. I think that would also reinforce that Net Promoter Score. So that's a really good question. Let's see, you got another one here. You spoke about stinky communications. I love it. And not just using email. What other methods of communications do you find most effective? I love this. And how do you split those across different platforms and media? I do love that question.
Oh, yes, that is right up your alley. So how do we get away from email and stop hiding behind screens? It's looking strategically at what's going to make the most impact outside of email. So things like, if we have field offices, sending a kit there filled with promotional items, flyers, anything personalized or variable printed tends to go a long way. Anything you'd add?
Yeah, one of the things we didn't cover here that we're passionate about is reviewing and analyzing target audience and looking to see where your target audience is. Particularly, are there multiple people that are working in the same office or the same reseller location? Or are they home-based and scattered all around? We have some where there's a big growth in inside sales. So if your channel is an inside sales center, maybe you can use posters as visual billboards that would get a lot of view. I do think some print communication, whether it's a flyer or postcard, it feels like it's making a retro comeback. If nothing else, it stands out. We don't get that much physical mail. The other thing I would say about physical mail and flyers is very often we're investing in the graphic design to make an attractive email. To slightly reformat that and print it as a flyer is very little cost. The print is a small cost. The greater cost is in the design. So I would look to the audience to figure out what the right mix is. Certainly also looking at your internal channels, if there's open mic calls that you're involved with, if you have a partner portal where you can put button ads.
I think there's a lot of great elements of loyalty programs that translate themselves really nicely to incentive programs, especially when it comes to communications. If you think about, again, your key tag when you go to the grocery store, or I'm sorry, I just completely blanked key tag on that, but we get a lot more email communications on the loyalty side. I'm thinking of branded wallet value. For a lot of our incentive programs, we do branded gift cards, which again is just something easy to see, close to mind, and keeps it fresh.
So we have a follow-up question on the communication piece. Do you use any social media platforms? And if so, what's most effective? So Kelly, in a second, you're 20 years younger than me, so you're going to have to answer social media. But I think with social is very effective in a B2C space. Most channel incentives run in a B2B space, and I think social is less effective in a B2B space. But now that I've said that, are there any platforms you recommend, Kelly, or would you take a different point of view?
In the B2B space, it's tough these days. If you are a business and you don't have a Facebook page, you're not a business.
Right.
The same thing's true for LinkedIn and even Instagram these days. So in the B2B space, you still have to have a presence. Absolutely. When it comes to B2C, I mean, that's when your Snapchats, your Instagram, all of that, it's necessary to be relevant. I think we can thank our president for reviving Twitter. You have to be there too these days.
Right.
So it's a matter of having a presence.
I do feel like I've seen some of our clients using LinkedIn pretty effectively for social selling, talking about channel events they're doing, or when something's released in a Gartner quadrant study or something like that. But let's see. We also have a question. What markers or indicators should you look at to know whether or not it's time to revamp your incentive program?
I have two answers to that one.
Good.
See, the first one is the easy answer, and that's where you should always keep an overlay program in mind, or even a club trip. Overlay programs like a trip to the Super Bowl, or trip just to somewhere promotable. So overlay programs are a great way to keep it fresh. But
and how long would an overlay program run?
3 months, 6 months.
Yeah. And what's the purpose of the overlay?
To get more attention to the base program and to add more excitement to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan also of overlays. We run a lot. I mean, we have some programs that have run 7 and 8 years, and some of them are point for merchandise, some of them are gift card. Anything that's points or currency is over a long period, can lose some momentum. But sprinkling in those overlay contests, it doesn't all have to be a $15,000 trip to the Super Bowl. You could give away. I remember a time when those Echo Dots came out.
Oh, yeah.
We had programs that gave away 100 Echo Dots in a quarter, or a new iPad comes out, give away 10 iPads. It's just something that keeps it fresh, causes people to pause for a moment to say, oh, now what's going on with this channel incentive? I think the other thing I would say is markers would be if you see a decline in participation rate, the number of take rate claims that are coming in. If you see a flattening out of participants, if you're not adding, continuing to add new participants, that could be a sign.
I would just quickly add one thing that we always recommend that you look at is it driving that bottom line ROI? As we say, a well-designed incentive program pays for itself. We might want to look at, do we have the payout percentage right compared to revenue?
Yeah. And another question, these are the best questions I think we've seen all year on webinars. For the various generations in the workplace, do you find that they are looking for different incentives?
You know, with all these millennials these days entering the workforce, and I can say that because I think I'm barely one, you know, it's all about experiences. And we've seen an uptick in people wanting individual trip fulfillment or even small group trip fulfillment. So anything we can do to create an experience is going to be on trend.
Okay. Let's see. You know, the other thing I would say with that is, oh goodness, you know, there's a lot of studies that have come out recently that said it's not as much about generations, but it's age groups, what it's always been.
Mhm.
You know, once upon a time when I was 28, I wanted new things or different things, or I wanted electronics. I think that is the great thing about having a wide range of catalog items, whether it's merchandise catalog or our gift card catalog that's got about 100 different gift card options. It gives something that everybody can see and connect with.
Yeah, but I mean, when you look at the older end of the generation, our baby boomers and traditionalists, they are the most likely to respond to a loyalty program. So those years of service awards really resonate with the older generation.
Okay, good. Well, I think our questions are winding down. Kelly and I will be here for a few more minutes if anybody wants to send any questions. But let's see, our marketing manager has just handed over something, and it looks like the best question came in from Mary. So we'll be reaching out to Mary and sending you a gift card. Thank you so much for all your participation, and
Have a great rest of your
yeah,
day.
thanks so much.